Hello everyone, welcome back to Dilli Rouge today, and I'm reviewing Oytra Elastico Pink Skin and the translucent versions this time. We'll start with the packaging, consistency, baking, strength and colors to check the quality of this clay. And starting with the packaging, let's get down to the basics of how these two variants have been packaged. The baking instructions, as you can see, has been mentioned on the top of the packaging, which is 130 degrees centigrades and 266 degrees Fahrenheit for both the variants, translucent and pink skin both. There's not much of instructions available on the packaging of these two variants like you would see in the other variants of Oytra. But it might be a minus for certain beginners who might have a lot of doubts about how to use this particular clay. But for pros and people who have had experience in using this variant or any other clay, it might not be such a big issue. Now getting back to the packaging on this one, the packaging is slightly thin plastic, which I personally do not prefer. I want my clay to be secure and protected from heat most of the time. Usually this is what is a major pet peeve for me when I buy clay. This kind of packaging might not be the best for storage purposes for that matter. In fact, if you see the other variants of Oytra, they usually give it in a blister packaging, which is absent in this variant. So I would call this type of packaging slightly flimsy. These packets were quite old, by the way. I've had these packs with me for around 4 to 5 months now, but the clay does not seem to have been affected by any form of alien particles. However, that also depends on how you store your clay. So I would really prefer if this variant could have come in a far better and sturdier packaging. But I also have a feeling that variants have evolved, and strangely I take a little bit of time. By the time I end up reviewing the test pieces, it's quite a bit, and Oytra tends to evolve their variants quite often. So maybe they have evolved their packaging quite a bit. So the translucent is filled, it's covered inside another layer of plastic, and it seems to be leaving some sort of plasticizer residue or oily residue, probably, which is why it has a double layer of plastic packaging, and it appears to be very soft, which I could sense when I was holding the package as well. So the inner layer of plastic is very similar to in thickness to the outer layer of packaging. I find it slightly messy when it comes to clay packaging, and restoring this might become a challenge. However, the clay seems to have a very interesting consistency, which we shall check later. So far, not very happy with the packaging on this variant, but seems to do the job. It's thin plastic, it's not reusable, and has lesser instructions, which could be a con for beginners. Now moving on to the consistency of this clay. I will be checking how easy it is to condition this clay and work with it, especially from a beginner point of view. To start with, I'll check the pink skin clay in the Elastico variant. For this, I'll just take a very tiny sliver and try to condition that with bare hands. And for this, I'm taking a very tiny slice of the pink skin clay using my tissue blade. So if you see, this tissue blade is quite flexible, and again, this is an Oytra tissue blade, which is of an 8 inches tissue blade of a 0.2 mm thickness. It's made of carbon steel, and I usually prefer two types of tissue blades. One is a flexible one, and one is a sturdy non-bendy type. The flexible ones are usually quite helpful in certain techniques. Now getting back to my clay, not a fan of the plastic packaging on this again. You can find like pieces of the plastic sticking to the clay at points. However, the clay seems to be very soft. but not sticky at the same time, which is very important. It should not be too much effort to work your clay and condition it. I will not be using a pasta machine to test this variant, because I want even beginners to feel comfortable starting to work with polymer clay even if they do not have a pasta machine. So I would try to see and condition this clay just without a pasta machine with my bare fingers. So far you can see it's quite soft, slightly stretchy as well, and has a very light translucency in it. And it's very easy to condition. Took me barely seconds to condition this tiny piece of clay. And it's flexible and smooth, does not crumble, which is a great sign. So far on the consistency, I think the pink skin does great. It's brilliant consistency, very easy to work with. All you need is probably an acrylic roller to work with it. Now let's move on to the translucent version of this. I already have a feeling that this will be a very soft clay, but I could feel that the consistency was not like other soft clays. It was not feeling sticky. So I want to check how easy to work with this clay might be for certain projects. Usually translucent clays are very hard on in texture. This is something very new for me. I have honestly not come across a translucent clay of this type of consistency. If you see, it does leave a lot of plasticizer and is slightly messy because it tends to leak plasticizer in the packaging, but it's not sticky for some reason. It's slippery and probably crumbly. So I'll just take a small sliver and see how this variant feels in my hands. I don't want to take a huge piece. I'll just test a small section of this. It feels like white butter, and if you see, it breaks because it left some residue on my blade as well. So it's slightly crumbly. It looks like white butter but feels far better, almost therapeutic. It breaks, but it's not hard, and it's so easy on the fingers, almost feels like therapy to work with it. I think I'm loving the texture of this particular variant. I think I've not come across a translucent clay that can be so easy on your fingers. I'll definitely not need a pasta machine to condition this. This can be conditioned so easily with your bare fingers or an acrylic roller, and I don't think this will take a lot of time to condition as well. It's definitely crumbly, but the consistency is just unlike any other polymer clay I've ever used before. I don't think I can compare it with any other variant, any other brand in the market. It's something you got to try and experience yourself, because I don't think the video is also doing much justice to the consistency of the translucent variant of the Elastico. I think I've become a huge fan of this variant. It's feeling like it's very easy to condition, and I will try to see how easy it feels when I roll it between my hands. I think that should do the trick. Yes, it's almost done being conditioned, and you can see it just took me a few seconds to condition this piece of clay. Probably one more minute and it'll completely stop cracking. So yeah, I am a huge fan. I think both the clays did very well in consistency. Pink skin was non-sticky, soft, no need for pasta machine, not crumbly at all, and very easy to condition. However, the translucent was extremely soft, easy to condition. Again, no need for a pasta machine, easy for beginners to use. We'll now move on to the baking of Elastico, and I will be showing you how I prefer baking my pieces. Again, it's just a suggestion to use an oven thermometer whenever you bake your pieces to get an accurate reading of the oven temperature. All ovens spike a little or might be varying on their temperatures a little, no matter how new or old they are. So it is always recommended to go for this kind of a setup to get the most accurate reading of temperature. Now I baked these two pieces as per instructions at 130 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes, and both were at a setting of number 3 on my pasta machine, and I cut out two shapes out of it. So if you look at the translucent version, it's quite smooth, no bubbling, no plucking, not very clear, but there is a hint of translucency. I can see light pass through it, but I think I'll have to make it a little thinner in order to get the maximum out of the translucency of this clay. Like I said, it's at a setting number 3 and seems to give quite a smooth finish. I haven't sanded these pieces, and you can see without sanding how smooth these came out to be. So pink skin apparently seems to show very tiny bubbles, but that's probably because I might have trapped some air bubbles while conditioning it. However, no plucking and no change in color. It's exactly the same color as it was before baking, which is a very big plus point. And it's smooth, it's not plucking either. Both have been baked at the same thickness, so it seems to be quite strong as well. I don't think this is going to be very easy to break either. Just 30 minutes has done quite a good amount of curing for both the pieces. If you see, the translucency I feel could be made slightly better, but there is no yellowing, and this seems to be quite strong if you ask me. Wow, for 30 minutes this is quite some strength for the translucent. It's not cracking, it's not leaving any stress marks where I'm folding the clay. Again, I do not recommend you trying to test your final pieces like this. This is just a stress test, and I will not recommend anyone to test their final creations this way. This is just to test what the strength of this clay is like. So you can see both of them are quite well baked, and I think now I want to test the translucency of the translucent clay, but for that I will have to check the translucent clay with a thinner version of it. It has done well in terms of strength and smoothness and color. There is no yellowing. In fact, it's the exact same level of white that it was before baking. So I want to just check the clarity of the translucent clay. And I baked one piece slightly thinner than the earlier one. So you can see it's slightly more flexible clearly because it's a thinner piece, and that has made no change in the strength. It's still as strong as the thicker version. Both can withstand quite a bit of pressure. And if you see how well these both have been baked at the same time, same temperature, 30 minutes at 130 degrees centigrade. But you can see that the colors are pretty much the same. The thinner version lets a little more light through it, so you can sort of see whatever is underneath this layer. I think I'll have to make it even more thinner for you to get an even more clearer picture of the clarity of this clay. And to get a better idea of the clarity, just hold it against a window or let light pass through it to get a better idea of how clear this clay is. The thicker version obviously does not let through a lot. It doesn't give a very clear picture of what's underneath. The thinner version, however, is slightly more clearer. But both did not yellow when I baked them. I actually like that aspect of this translucent clay. You can see how the impression of my fingers can be experienced in the thinner version. You can see how my fingers can be seen behind it, even in the thicker version slightly. You know what? I think I have a better way of testing this. Let me just check it against the torchlight of my phone. There you go. Can you see how well the light is passing through the thinner version? It's almost like it's lit. It's like a light bulb. Similarly with the thicker version. I think this can give you a very good idea of how you can use this clay You can probably make tea light holders using this clay for festive seasons and let the lights do the trick in your projects. And here's a classic version which lets through very less light, and the translucent on top of the classic. I mean, I'm just giving you ideas and letting your brain run wild with the kind of ideas you can come up with using the translucent clay and play with lights. I am already getting ideas of making tea light holders using this translucent clay. I think it'll do a very good job in terms of lamp holders. So yeah, that's my verdict of the baking. It's flexible, great strength, no color change, translucent shows minimal plaquing, and it's slightly hazy and no yellowing. So the pros of this variant is great strength, flexibility, no color variation, easy to condition, and very beginner friendly. Meanwhile, the cons of this variant are that the packaging is not something that I particularly liked. Additional instructions are absent, and translucency is not very clear. So that's all, folks. Hope you find the review helpful. Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section on the Elastico, and I hope to see you soon in my next video. Have fun creating till then. Adios.